Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As, and I always find it interesting. A lot of people say, oh, your channel has gone to shit, you put so much clickbait content. You know what, guys? I make an hour of informative content every week, so just keep that in mind, guys. These Q&As run about 25 minutes. These come out every Sunday. I put out at least one informative video every day. Yeah, I pad a little content because I like to have a little fun. I like to do a little outreach. I like to do a little bit of trolling and do some things that I at least find entertaining and amusing, but the informative content will always be here, and the core audience who enjoy the information will always hit these Q&As and other things. So this is where we keep it, and we keep it serious in the Q&As at all times. Alright, so let's go ahead and knock this out. First question. Jason, in your cooked food video, you said that our brain uses a lot of calories. Does this mean that when studying intensely for finals, adjusting your eating habits slightly would be recommended? Or would the extra brain work be balanced out by the presumable decrease in general movement being set at the desk studying? Actually, studying doesn't really burn that many calories at all. And the reason for it is your cognitive ability, your brain and your frontal lobes and everything in your brain that makes you more intelligent, that makes you have more reasoning capacity and everything else than most other animals, is functioning at all times. That's where your personality comes from. That's where your thought process comes from. That matter is metabolic, and it's always utilizing calories. So even if you're just chilling, sleeping, doing nothing, not really studying, you're burning just as many calories. It might see a very, very tiny increase of a few calories per day when you're doing a lot of intense studying and thinking, but it's not going to be like 30 or 50 or 100. So actually when you're studying, due to the less physical activity, you're going to burn less calories. So no, you probably don't need to adjust your diet, other than you might want to eat slightly less, purely because you're not going to be as active, you're not going to be exercising as much, you're probably not even going to be focusing on training as much if you're studying correctly for finals. So this idea that you would need to eat more or even the same is probably not true. You're probably going to want to reduce your food just slightly. But you know what? You might not even want to do that just because you don't want to get fatigued, and who cares if you gained a couple of ounces of body fat while studying for finals. Finals should be important to you. If you're actually trying to get a degree, you're trying to get an education, that should be taking priority over maintaining perfect body composition for you. It is simply a more important goal for 99% of the population, if not more, even those who lift. So yeah, truth be told, you're talking about such a small increase in calories that it's not going to be worth noting, and it's going to be not only offset, but very, very negatively offset by the lack of activity. So you're going to be burning less overall. All right, next question. In the past, I've had some pretty huge success in the squat with Bulgarian lite style training, working up to a daily max with some back-offs 7 days a week. However, when I tried it with the bench, nothing really happened. I felt more comfortable benching and far more stable, but couldn't really put more weight on the bar. Can you think of any obvious reasons for the differences, either biomechanically or physiologically? Yeah, a few things are going on there, but the thing is, if you felt more stable and more confident on the bench, that will eventually lead to a better bench. The thing that you need to remember with the Bulgarian style training, a lot of it is neuromuscular in nature, because you're doing daily singles. You're training your nervous system, you're training your body, you're training your technique. It's not just about gaining muscle, because hitting the same lift 7 days a week is probably not going to put more size on you than hitting the same exercises 3 to 4 days a week, just due to the way they're going to overlap on muscle protein synthesis uptime. So you are talking about just nervous system at that point. The thing that you need to keep in mind is that the bench press is very, very relative. It is the most relative of your big three to your body weight. It has the strongest correlation to changes in body weight of any of your big three power lifts. So if you weren't gaining weight, or you weren't bulking or anything else, and particularly if you might have been losing weight slightly, you shouldn't expect to see a very noticeable change in your bench press once you're beyond the novice phase. Unless you've changed something else dramatically. So what you're probably doing is just learning the technique and getting more confident with it, because again, like you said, you felt more stable, and you probably hadn't done it long enough while maintaining roughly the same body weight. Over time, that will translate into a better bench press. People have successfully used the Bulgarian lite to get stronger bench presses. There's nothing wrong with it. Just realize that at a certain threshold, if you are not gaining weight at a certain point in your training, bench press gains are going to come very, very slowly. The only other thing I might recommend is maybe some additional higher volume accessory work for something to help increase the bench press, like your overhead press or an incline bench or something like that. Wouldn't be a bad idea if you feel you've stalled for a little while, just to help bring up those other muscles, and then allowing the actual bench press training to be your technique work and your stability work and your motor unit learning. All right, next question. Hey Jason, is there a problem with fructose content of fruit? Fruits are obviously great for their vitamins and minerals, but can they do more harm than good in large quantities? Again, this is a tricky question. Like I've discussed this in the past. I made a whole video on this recently, and I guess you didn't see it, and I guess we should reiterate it in the Q&As here. Your body doesn't care where the fructose comes from. It's total net cumulative fructose that's going to matter the most as far as the negative effects of fructose. Now, does that mean you should be scared of fruit? Probably not. Because like you're saying, fruits tend to be very satiating compared to most other high sugar foods. They have a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, they have additional fiber. There's a lot of benefits to consuming fruit. It is difficult to consume enough fruit to really have a valid concern for the fructose intake. And even if you're having other positive health benefits from consuming the fruit versus had you consumed the same amount of fructose from table sugar, because of all the fiber, vitamins, minerals, things like that, the other benefits, and it's just so much more satiating. Your real concern comes in, for most people, you have to be consuming, and if you're consuming 20 or 30 bananas every day, 7 days a week, this might be an issue, but for most people who are eating 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of fruit thrown in their food every day, fructose is not a concern for you at that point, unless you're heaping on tons of processed sugar with it. And that's the point that we're coming to when we talk about net fructose intake. A large amount of fruit could probably push you over the limit if you're already consuming other refined sugars. But if fruit itself, even eating 4 or 5 pieces of fruit every day, 7 days a week, is your only significant source of fructose, it's just very unlikely that you need to be concerned about fructose intake at that point. So I really wouldn't worry about it. So again, is it a problem? Potentially, but like with everything else, the poison is in the dose. And for most people, the amount of fruit they're consuming on a healthy, balanced diet is simply not going to add enough fructose to their diet to cause any sort of negative markers on your blood work or your health markers. It's just not going to happen. It's the total additive effect of throwing a bunch of fruit into a diet that is unbalanced already, or creating an unbalanced diet. That's where your problem lies. Fruit itself, in the amount that most people, even athletes, are going to eat, is probably reasonable until it becomes something crazy like some fruitarian diet to where it's 90% of your calories. And you're probably looking at a problem. All right, next question. Hey Jason, my whole lifting career I've been a wrist bender for the bench press. So far I have a 240 bench max with that style. Recently I've decided to switch to a pronated style of gripping the bar, also known as the bulldog grip. I've actually demonstrated some of that for you guys in my how-to playlist. If you guys go check that out, that's kind of what I demonstrate for you guys in the bench press and closed grip bench press video, and I show you guys how to grip the bar. But I've had trouble keeping it in place fully when benching, and I have also noticed that my elbows are shaky on the way down. Maybe I'm not holding the bar completely right, or I'm just not used to it. Any recommendations? Yeah, you change the biomechanics of your exercise. You're using a different style of grip. That is going to change the bar path. That's going to change the plane that your elbows travel through. It's going to change all of your biomechanics of the lift. You're going to have to spend reduce the weight for a few weeks. Just because you have the musculature to bench a given weight doesn't mean that you have the motor patterns and for the new biomechanics, the changes in the biomechanics. So you're going to be shaky. It's going to feel weird. You're going to be awkward. You're going to be a little weaker. Cut the weight back 10, 20%. Get used to the new style of benching, and then go back into your normal program and build it back up. But you're going to have to do some technique work to learn the motor patterns and the biomechanics of the new grip, because you changed everything. And that's one of the reasons the style of grip is safer, is because it does change everything quite a bit, and the stress and everything on your shoulders. So it makes a big deal, but you're going to have to get used to it. You're going to have to learn the new technique, and you're going to have to accept that it's going to feel a little awkward unlearning the old way, and you're going to be a little weaker for a short time. But in the long term, you'll get the benefit of a safer bench press, lower injury rate, and that's what will keep you training longer. If you're getting less wear and tear on your shoulders and lower injuries, in the long term, that's going to contribute to a better bench press, because being hurt sets you back worse than anything you can possibly do. That is your ultimate plateau, is an injury. All right, next question. I have been doing weight training for about 5 months in your linear hypertrophy program, specifically for 8 weeks, and I like the results so far. My running season is coming up with a couple of races planned. How should I program for this? I want to maintain my gains so far, so I think of doing your 3x5 cutting for 2 times a week and work in 3 running sessions, a distance session, a HIIT interval session, and a long run session for at least 14 kilometers. My goal is to be lean and feel good, not to hit PRs for running, but I like running and races get me motivated. Great channel, keep it up. Like I always tell guys, anytime you are going into an end season for a sport, and in this case you're a runner, you have a running season, you need to go back to doing some sort of concurrent style training, like a lot of people would call undulating style periodization. Get in there, you could train 3 days a week, you could train 4 days a week on the lifting if you really want to. But if you cut it back to 3, you could run something like a full body on an undulating, cut the volume back to where you have a heavier day and you have a lighter, higher volume day. Don't try to progress anymore. As long as you can maintain, let's say you have a 3 rep day and you have an 8 rep or a 10 rep day on everything. And let's say you rotate through them every session. You could do full body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you could do full body just Monday, Friday if you wanted to do 2 a week. Have your heavier day, your lighter day. Don't try to increase the weights. Just maintain the weight on the bar for all of those during your running season so that you can focus upon your endurance work. And what you'll find is that you will maintain all of your progress, all your strength, all your muscle mass. And so when you finish the running season and you go back to progressing on the weights, you're going to pick right back up where you left off. And because you're fairly new to lifting, you've only been lifting 6 months, you might actually get slightly better while doing that. Now, because you're in a running season and you're training for endurance more, you're not going to get anywhere near the gains you would have gotten without doing that, but you can still make some progress. And the key is to, again, keep the total workload low enough in the weight room that you have no trouble adapting to it and recovering from it while focusing on your other endeavor. And that's what will let you make little bits of gains while you're focusing on your running and your endurance. Particularly being still in your first year of lifting, you're probably still going to make progress if you come in and do a 2-day-a-week undulating style full body. You're still going to probably make progress, just slow progress, while actually focusing on large progress on your running and endurance. So that's what I would probably recommend to you. And then, like I said, when you go back to the heavier weight training and focusing on that more, you're just going to excel again as soon as you back off on the endurance work. And if anything, all the endurance work is going to increase your work capacity, it's going to increase your recovery, and you're going to progress even faster potentially when you go back to the lifting seriously. So hopefully that clarifies that for you. All right, next question. When would it be appropriate for a lifter to move from full body to a body part, assuming size and strength is their main objective? All right, guys, I don't recommend that people ever really need to go to a body part split if they don't want to. There's no reason you can't do full body for the rest of your lifting career and get amazing results. The reason that a lot of people need to go to body part splits is this: they just get bored with full body. If you're at a point where you are just simply bored of full body, you're not motivated to go in and train, go for a body part split. Biomechanically and physiologically, there probably isn't a real reason for you to ever do this, barring massive drug doses that are going to totally change your muscle protein synthesis uptime and everything else going on. There's no reason for you to split the body up. So if you're not that person, the reason you would do this, you're going to be more motivated to train. A big change like that again isn't always physiologically the best choice. It might give you 10% or 5% slower results purely from a physiology perspective, might mentally give you an advantage because you're going to come in and train harder. You're going to train more consistent. If you're burned out and bored with the other style of training, the new style of training, you might spend several months to where you're a lot more motivated. You're more consistent. You're training harder, more consistently, more often, not missing workouts, not half-assing it in the gym because you're motivated because you like the change. You're going to jump back to making a little faster progress again. So the answer comes down to when you're ready for it, when you think psychologically you're just so burned out on the other style of training that you're going to do better and be more motivated on the new style, like, again, a body part split. That is really where it's at, because biologically there's no reason for you to do it, but mentally, if you're in that position, it can make all the difference in the world. So you do it whenever you think you're ready to. And in some cases, that might mean never. All right, next question. Hey Jason, what program would you recommend for a novice that is purely interested in powerlifting? Thanks. Depends on if you have a coach or not, who can coach your lifts and your technique. If you don't have someone who can watch every lift and technique that you do, I'm going to recommend you do any generic strength training program. Anything. It could be anything from my linear hypertrophy program to starting strength to strong lifts to my novice 5x5. Do that for 6 months. learn the technique and do a little bit of volume with all of your basic lifts for at least 6 months. Once you have the technique perfect, once you have videos that other coaches and powerlifters and people can look at of your big three, and you know that your technique is ingrained for 6 months, go over to Bulgarian lifestyle training. I will always recommend for people whose goal is powerlifting to do a Bulgarian style training. There's tons of stuff. Everyone from Matt Perryman to Greg Knuckles have good programs out there for you guys who are not advanced to get onto that. If you're a little more advanced, Jamie Lewis's Chaos and Pain style training is in a way similar to Bulgarian light. Anything to where you're coming in and you're pretty much squatting every single day. You're pressing at a very high frequency up to 6 days a week, deadlifting at least twice a week, doing heavy work all the time, boom, boom, boom. If your goal is purely powerlifting, you need to be doing some sort of Bulgarian style training for the vast majority of you, for at least 90% of you guys out there. If you have other goals in mind, you might need to do other styles of training. But the issue with the Bulgarian style training of doing daily training maxes all the time is that if your technique isn't good and you haven't spent at least 6 months perfecting the technique and building a base, you're going to be more injury prone. You're going to get less out of it. So it's not really going to be ideal for you unless you have learned the technique and have built a base first. Now, if you've got a coach who can start coaching you from day one, there's no reason you can't go straight into this style of training. I coached a friend of mine personally for a few months here in the U.S. to get into lifting when I first got back here, and I watched every set and rep he did, and he just excelled utilizing almost a Bulgarian light style training where we just hit basically triples. We came in and we built up to a triple 3-rep training max on all his big lifts when he was in the gym, and he just excelled and excelled and excelled. And within a few months, I mean, he was deadlifting like 375 as a late 30s male, like 10 weeks into our training. And the same thing, he was squatting like 300 pounds for a triple, around 290 for a triple, a good 12 weeks into the training, 10 to 12 weeks in. So it's totally feasible if you have someone coaching you all the time. But otherwise, you're going to need to build a base first. All right, next question. Does decreasing the time between sets work as a form of progressive overload? For example, going from 3 sets of 8 with 3 minutes rest period to 3 sets of 8 at the same weight with 90 seconds rest period. Do you recommend this as a way to mix things up to get through plateaus? All right, as I've always told you guys, the 3 factors in determining progressive overload where you can measure progress as long as technique, form, and range of motion stay the same are always going to be number 1, mechanical tension, that's weight on the bar. Number 2, total workload, that's how many total reps and sets you do. And number 3 is going to be workload density, how quickly you can get all of that work done from number 2. And in that order, that is the order in which they stimulate the most adaptation. Mechanical tension stimulates the most, volume the second, and then thirdly, workload density. I don't recommend that you change workload density unless you've plateaued. If you're doing a decently high amount of volume, and that's the way that you're choosing to train is a higher volume approach, and you have plateaued and stalled, and you can't increase mechanical tension further, weight on the bar, you can't really seem to increase workload very much without just getting stupid at that point, adding more reps and sets, particularly if you can't add more reps with the same weight. Then that's when you can start adjusting workload density to push to a plateau, and at that point it becomes effective. Doing it before that, really, just isn't the most ideal way to make faster gains because the other two produce better results. So if you can increase tension, you can increase workload, there's no need to worry about workload density. But when those other two have stalled out, that's kind of like your ace in the hole to push through for a week or two to stimulate new adaptation so that you can hopefully go back to increasing tension and workload. And so again, we call it increasing workload density, so cutting rest times with the same amount of volume. And again, like I said, it's a viable tool in the toolbox. It just needs to be used appropriately to really get the most out of it, because there are other tools that work in most other cases. But it has its time and its place, and that is the time and place to utilize it when you have stalled and plateaued on the other two methods. All right, next question. And here we go. You've probably covered it, but I don't remember. Is your weight training confined to what you see on your weekly YouTube training videos, or are you training just on Mondays and Fridays, and how many deadlift sets are you doing minus warm-ups? As I've said before, guys, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My Wednesday, I started cutting deadlifts out and trying to work front squats in place of it on the Wednesday, which I haven't been filming because until my front squats get better, I have no interest in filming those. And I think 2 workout sessions per week is plenty of my peak sets for you guys on video, just to keep you guys in the loop of what I'm doing. But otherwise, that's pretty much what I do. The reason I don't film warm-ups, I don't do a lot of warm-ups. My workouts, unless I'm stopping and chatting with people or we're setting up a camera to film, I'm out the door in 30 minutes. Now, the filming and getting my girlfriend ready with a camera to film and everything and waiting between her sets to do that, that extends my workouts longer. So they're longer due to the filming. But otherwise, my workouts are 30 minutes or less at this point. I don't really do a lot of warm-ups. For example, you guys watch me do, say, 495 for 8 reps or 515 for 6 reps on the beltless deadlift. I only do 2 warm-ups for that, and that's my first exercise. I generally come in and do about 3 reps with 315. I do 2 reps with 405, then I go straight to the work set. So we're talking about me doing over 100 pounds less than my work sets and never going over 3 reps on the warm-up. Same with pressing when I go to do like the incline or closed grip bench press. I start with the empty bar for 5. I go to 135 for 5, then I go straight to those work sets. Behind the neck press, I do an empty bar, and then I go straight to the work set. All the other exercises, I just go straight to the work sets with no warm-up. All the lighter fluff movements, I just do my work sets. So it really is very little warm-up. It's not like you guys are thinking of a bunch of warm-ups going into it. It's at most 2 warm-up sets, and they're usually at best within 100 pounds of the final work set. If I'm doing anything that's anything under 150 pounds on an exercise, I don't even bother to warm up anymore, even for isolation movements. Now, as far as what do I do outside of that, I do chin-ups and dips at home most days. I've told you guys I'm doing kind of a greasing the groove method. I'm not greasing the groove on dips. I just do 1 set of dips about 5 or 6 days a week at home, just body weight dips for high reps. And I do chin-ups every day. I do greasing the groove, where I just come in and do 3 or 4 chin-ups multiple times every day. Every time I walk by my dip station, my chin-up and dip station at home. So I do a lot of body weight stuff at home. I do a lot of cardio at home. I spend way more time doing cardio than I do lifting. Because for me, conditioning work and endurance is more important to me overall at this time. So it is my primary training focus, and I do all that at home with a lot of list cardio. So that's pretty much what I do. There's minimal warm-ups, and like I tell guys, if you need a lot of warm-ups, you're probably not in shape, and your joints and your range of motion need a lot of work. Your mobility needs a lot of work. If you guys are needing a lot of warm-ups, you guys need to focus more on your raw lifting with full range of motion. If you're even feeling sore or hurt or anything from going to heavy sets pretty quickly without warming up. All right, that's it for the normal questions. This next question is kind of an anabolic question, and I don't know, I want to try to give this guy a little bit of advice just so that he understands what's going on here, because this is pretty aggressive in my opinion. All right, so let's get to it. Any issues to be aware of with long-term AAS use, that's anabolic androgenic steroids, that doesn't show on comprehensive blood work? Yeah, there actually can be, brother. So let's get to that. I've been running 250 milligrams of test and 700 milligrams of trend for 16 plus weeks, and my blood work just came back with everything in a healthy range. Does this mean it's safe for me to continue? That's tricky, because if okay, I believe that kind of test for 16 weeks is very possible, and for a lot of guys, your blood work's going to come back beautiful. There are doctors who will prescribe that much for you sometimes. Blood work should be good, but if you're stacking that with 700 milligrams of tren, I assume you're probably doing 100 milligrams every day. Tren tends to be really harsh on things like your HDL cholesterol, your hematocrit levels. The fact that you've come back with everything in the healthy range after 16 plus weeks of 700 milligrams of tren a week tells me that your tren might not be legit. It either means that you're very genetically resilient to the side effects of anabolics, in which case you might be okay, you might be good to continue, but that's going to be a personal risk analysis. That's not something I can tell you what's right or wrong for you, but I do love the fact that you're doing blood work. This is what I want to see from guys who are going to be run aggressive stacks like this, where they're going to run 700 milligrams of tren for an extended period of time. The fact that you're getting blood work is fantastic. Keep doing that. If there's anything that looks bad in your blood work, or your doctor tells you, hey, you need to back off, you need to back off. It's as simple as that. Blood work is your ultimate tool. So either you are very resilient to side effects and things like lower HDL, or your diet is phenomenal, your cardio is phenomenal, or something's going on that you're doing that's unusual. If your blood work is coming back with everything in the healthy range and normal, obviously your HTPA and everything's going to be suppressed, but if everything's in the normal range, that's fantastic. The things that you do need to be aware of, there are things that might not be showing on the blood work, particularly things like prostate health. If you start noticing trouble urinating, or your prostate feels unusual or sore or something like that, that is something that's not going to show on blood work, and that is something you need to be very, very aware of. So maybe it's something you should discuss with your doctor. You might need to look into talking with your doctor about various things for prostate health and prostate exams. If you're going to run fairly aggressive stacks like this for extended periods of time, you really need to be worried about your prostate health. So that's something you should probably discuss further with your medical doctor and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Can we get an extra prostate exam to check for any prostate hypertrophy or any concerns that might contribute to a prostate cancer down the road or prostate problems? Because that's not going to show in your blood work, and that's going to be a big concern, and you really should probably discuss that further with a medical doctor. All right, guys, but that's it for all the fitness-related questions. I've got a political question coming up. It's the last question of the week, but this one really kind of relates to fitness and health. So I had about 5 or 6 political questions, and I'm like, let's grab the one that's actually somewhat fitness-related. I thought it was interesting. So let's get to it. What is your opinion on National Health Service? And again, that's the NHS. That's the socialized medicine in the UK, and I did live there for 3 years. So let's go to that. It seems unfair that someone who exercises and eats healthy has to contribute the same as someone who doesn't give a fuck about their health and is constantly needing treatment. Is a private insurance-based system with more competition a fairer, better, and more efficient system? Yeah, let's think about that. I mean, I live in the U.S. I grew up in the U.S., but I've also lived abroad. I've been around the world, and I've seen the different things in place. And it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't with this. Yeah, your concerns with the NHS are very valid. That's one reason we will probably not have socialized medicine in the U.S. The American people are not going to want to foot the taxes for it because our lifestyles here are very unhealthy for the most part. We have access to so much food and junk food and crap and everything that people's health suffers as a result of their diet. And if 50% of the population eat terrible, the others are not going to want to pay for their lifestyles because that's what happens with socialized medicine. The problem you run into, well, in a place like the United States, we have the best healthcare in the world because we have it all privatized and there's competition, and competition breeds ingenuity. Competition is what gives you the best services. The problem that we run into is that not everyone can afford it because it is competitive, because it's the best, it's expensive with it privatized in that way. Because people have to make a profit on it, and when it's the best, you're still going to see the best services out there, and the cheaper stuff is going to be inferior. So a lot of people can't afford it. So it's kind of like there's where we run into the fairness. Can everyone afford it? No. And then you get into the debate of, but just because you can't afford something doesn't mean that other people are obligated to pay for it and give it to you. That's the real debate we run into. But it doesn't even work that way in the United States, because at the end of the day, for people who are at the poverty line or lower, there is socialized medicine available. Is it as comprehensive as it is in the United Kingdom? Nowhere near. No, it is simply not as comprehensive. But it is available. There are county hospitals that you can go into, and if you have like Medicaid or something, which is for people who are unemployed, disabled, or too low of income, they have children and they're low income, they end up getting what's called like Medicaid here, and that will cover the bills at all, like the county hospitals and everything. And all the counties have a county hospital. It is similar to the NHS, other than it still has a full billing department, and you better have some sort of coverage or something to get it. But the thing is, if you are low income, you don't have a job, you have children, and you don't make enough money, you're going to be able to qualify for Medicaid here. It's just an application process to get it, and it's a little slower to get than something like the NHS, but it's still available. So the problem we run into, we already have that. The taxpayers are already footing the bill for that. And so at the end of the day, I don't think that this argument works out in any of our current systems, because there is no first world country where the taxpayer is not footing the bill in some way for people who can't afford it. It happens on some level no matter where you go. So the real question becomes, since at this point, since it's unavoidable even in a place like the U.S., it has a fully, is considered to be capitalist and private medical system, easily the largest and most comprehensive in the world as far as privatized, we still have a minor socialized medicine component. And the people who tend to have the worst lifestyles, again, people in poverty, they tend to have the worst diets. Those are the people who are utilizing it. So at the end of the day, we're still paying for them. So the only real solution here is, rather than make this argument about paying for it, maybe go in and you either have to eliminate the completely socialist component of it, which is one option, but we could argue about the ethics of that if that's a problem. And your only other option might be to just better education, In schools, better health education in schools try to remove the ignorance that comes along with poverty through the education system. That might be the only real viable option at this point. Unfortunately, I'm not a wise enough person to know how to implement all these systems. I don't have all the answers. So a lot of people kind of joke like, Jason, you know everything. You have all the answers. I might come across like I think that I do, but in a lot of cases, sorry guys, this is one of those, I'm just not a wise enough person to know how to implement this system and fix this problem. I wish that I did, and if not me, that I wish someone else did, because it's a real problem. I have a few ideas there that I've just thrown out, but what's the right answer? We're going to need someone smarter than me to figure it out. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. Please remember, guys, if you guys liked the Q&As, please remember to click like, because that dislike campaign is still going on, and this Q&A is probably going to get 1,500 dislikes. Try to offset that if you guys actually genuinely enjoy the information. So I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.